Ralu on board.
Radio for Brainport.
Radio engineers ready to press the record button? Ready for takeoff? Welcome on 747. This is Radio for Brainport, broadcasting on 747 AM in the medium wave band, but also on DAB+, digitally also on the internet. And welcome on board, welcome to Ralu on board, a program about leaders and leadership, hosted by Ralu, Mr. Lustomans. And our guest today is Gijs Vrenken. And you may have already seen he is the communication manager at Eindhoven Airport because he gave us a room with a view.
For this edition, we couldn't have been closer to onboarding our today's leader because, as you just mentioned, Jean-Paul, we are facing the runway of Eindhoven Airport. On board, in edition 8, we have someone who has a passion for connecting people, is also very interested in sustainability. He's a communication expert, a trained journalist, and he joins all his skills and passions in one role as the communication director of Eindhoven Airport. Gijs, welcome to Ralu on board.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for this wonderful view you organized for us.
Yeah, well, if you got Ralu coming over, then we need to make everything possible, eh?
Thank you. So are we ready to get on board?
Yeah, we're ready for takeoff.
Ready for takeoff. Excellent. Tell us something about ready to take off at Eindhoven Airport. Let's set the scene for our listeners and give them some insights about what happens at Eindhoven Airport.
Yeah, a lot of things happen on Eindhoven Airport, of course. For first and foremost, we are of course, the airport for the region Eindhoven, the wider Brainport region. So that's already something that we have in common to have a target group that we both focus on. Now, we've been around already for more than 90 years in the Eindhoven region. Not exactly on where we are right now, because the first airport that was established in 1923 was at Meerhoven. So you can still see the little airport building there, which now is a little restaurant where you can have nice sandwiches. And by the way, if you're there, a lot of pictures from the old days are hanging on the wall. So if you haven't visited yet, go and see it if you're interested. So that was the location of the first airport for Eindhoven.
Was that called the Welschap Airport?
Yes.
Okay. I've done my due diligence and I thought, was that maybe the first place and the first name of the airport?
Yeah, and maybe also something good to know is that, of course, nowadays it's called Eindhoven Airport. But until the 90s, Eindhoven Airport was in Veldhoven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Welschap was originally a little township of the city of Veldhoven. Well, it was a city back then. It was the townships all together, but it was Veldhoven ground where Eindhoven Airport was, or back then Welschap was established.
And was the airport from the beginning having a tourist business model, or was it maybe just to land in trading, goods from around the world? What's the role there at that time and what's the role now?
Yeah, well, if we're going to take a little bit of a history lesson, which is quite interesting though, because the parts of history that eventually created Eindhoven Airport as we know it right now started more than 19 years ago. Back then you didn't have the big planes like we are looking at for the listeners at home from this window, so not the big Boeings and the Airbuses. But almost 100 years ago you only had the wooden airplanes with the cotton fabric bodywork on the side with maybe one or two pilots, the aviation pioneers that risked their lives to reach for the sky.
To the sky.
Yeah. That was the scenery back then, and those enthusiasts have started it back then. It was also the time where the aviation pioneers who started to think about bigger airplanes, and that started with cargo, like Fokker and the like. They said, well, let's start to see if we can also create an airport in the south of the Netherlands. because back then, the world has not increased in size, but for humanity 100 years ago, it was a completely different story, of course. And the South, before in the interbellum between the First and the Second World War, we didn't have the runway, the highways as we have right now, and not the railway station we have right now. But we had cities coming up. We had Philips starting gaining ground here in the south. So back then, KLM said, "Well, let's start to create also aviation in the south of the Netherlands." And basically, what they said was to free the south out of its isolation. That was the motto back then.
Free the South out of its isolation.
Yeah. And that's where it all started. And then he started cargo coming in a little bit. So Philips started to move its radios all over the place in Europe because they started to grow. And Eindhoven has grown with it.
Yeah, and Eindhoven did grow a lot in the last 100 years, as you said.
Yeah.
And today, as we are recording this podcast, I see 4 big Boeing airplanes ready to take off.
Yeah.
And we've seen in preparing a couple of them landing. How is Eindhoven Airport today is completely different, right? And what's the role of Eindhoven Airport today in the Brainport area?
Yeah, the
The vision of 100 years ago, I think, is
I'm
now
going to tell you a
fulfilled.
funny story about it because indeed, the size and the place is totally different than 100 years ago, of course. And technology is nothing compared to what you saw back then. But actually the role has not changed. Because the fact that it started almost 100 years ago with the idea to create an airport that could serve the wider Eindhoven region is still our purpose today. So that role has not changed. We still have the majority of our passengers come from this region. And the destinations that we have, which are, of course, more and further spread than 100 years ago, is still based on the needs that we identify for the Brainport region, or the Brainport region has identified and has told us that what their wish list would be in order to fly from Eindhoven.
And how are the flights from Eindhoven? We are talking that it started with the need for commercial flights. I know that Eindhoven is a pretty special airport. It's not only a civil airport, has a double and, for me, actually a triple role.
Yeah.
That is pretty unique.
True.
Let's tell our listener what it is, this uniqueness of Eindhoven Airport.
Yeah, that's basically also part of how it has grown since it all started in the 1920s, is that we are currently at a military Air Force base, and that was because of the fact that after the First War, or during the Second World War, the German occupation forces took over the keys of the airport and made it a military Air Force base.
And sorry for interrupting, I'm just seeing a military airplane, I think, at the end of the runway, ready for takeoff.
Yeah, that's true.
While we see other 2 commercial airplanes ready also for taking off. Does, in this case, the military airplane, I suppose, has priority?
Depends.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends on what the tower says. Normally, arriving airplanes they go first because they need to land, and then planes taking off need to wait until the airspace is clear. So basically what happens now, and for the viewers at home who are only listening, the listeners then, of course, you see now that the planes are waiting for each other, and flight control now is in contact with the pilots of these planes in order to prioritize who goes first. And when a plane comes in, it has the right to land first before planes are taking off. But it's all well controlled, and it's not that busy today, so it's they don't run into trouble.
Okay. Sorry, I interrupted the story and was really interested. So the keys of the airport have been taken by the by the German occupation.
Yeah.
And it became a military base.
Yeah. until the end of the Second World War. And then the British RAF took over, because then we were, as the Netherlands, in a position that we need to build up the country. And this was all prepared as a military Air Force base. And because to bring more stability in Europe, the British Air Force took control for a few years, until the Dutch Air Force was up to strength in order to start operations again. And when that was taking place, also the Philips Corporation was booming again in the 1950s, and because of the fact that he had all the facilities in the neighborhood, which was operated by the military Air Force, but was not using it 24/7. The Philips organization, who had started their own flying service, and within the region Eindhoven, it's very well known, the Philips Vliegdienst, where maybe a lot of people somewhere still know about. They started talking about, can we use the facilities, because we also have a need to fly, and we don't want to go to Germany or Schiphol or Brussels to go to our factories and offices abroad. So they started the civil part again, business-wise, at Eindhoven. And that jump-started in the 70s and the 80s. Already, again, normal civil flights, by back then, the big ones, KLM and the like. And then you started the transition in the 90s, where the type of operators and airlines you see currently, like Transavia, Ryanair and Wizz Air, that have a more mean and lean business model, to start operating at Eindhoven, and to serve the region with air travel to places people need and want to go.
Yeah, indeed. So we have military use, we have commercial touristic use. But you were telling me that we did not lose all those pilots who are passionate about flying their own little jets.
Yeah.
And the other day, driving around the airport, I actually had the opportunity to see all 3 airplanes at the same time in the air. So you also have the...
Yeah, we have the aviation fanatics that are, there are about 400. They are member of the Eindhoven Aero Motor Club. So those guys fly little private planes. So you just described the picture that we see currently about a military plane and the civil airplanes. Sometimes you could see that they are waiting for a little two-seater, a little Cessna. That is part of the Aero Club, which is also located here at the airport. So those are the big, the 3 players at the airport here.
Indeed, so you never get bored here at the airport, and we see a lot of people sometimes on the view side, on the side of the airport, just parking their cars and taking a look at what happened at the airport.
Yeah, I see also constantly looking at the window to see what's going on, and I catch myself sometimes doing that the same thing, because it never gets bored. Working here.
Do you feel the multicultural dimension at the airport on your everyday working life? Because, of course, the airport for many people is the place to start their holidays, or to go for work. For you, is coming to work every day and not necessarily taking a flight.
Yeah, well, it's I don't feel it every day. I feel it every second.
How do you feel this internalization and multicultural aspect at the airport in your working life?
Yeah, you tend, if you're an airport, to look at the planes, but it's also very interesting to look at it in the terminal building, to see people flying away, people coming back, people who are waiting for their friends, family, loved ones to come out of the reclaim hall, the arrival halls, and to embrace them with flowers and balloons and the like. Still, you see that every day, and that's it. It gives a feeling of warmth, and that's something wonderful to see.
But on the other hand, yes, I can imagine that the airport has a little bit the perception of it's for the sun and it's for the fun. But now you also connect it to the internationals who love and live here. So it has a regional function as well to keep Brainport going.
Yeah, that's true. Because when people fly, they have a reason to fly. And everybody has a good reason to fly. And for a little over 50% of the people, it's about enjoying to go on holiday, to relax after a full year of work. But that's little more than half of the passengers that we welcome every day travel for that reason. And the other half, if you got it a little bit like that, you can split it two ways. That one out of every 4 traveler travels to see friends, family, to go back for a wedding, for a birth or a funeral or whatever. Those kind of social family types of reasons. And the other person that flies needs to travel for work. And then you tend to say those are the business travelers with the suitcases and the 3-piece suits, the CEOs and decision makers. But you would be surprised how many engineers, mechanics, and the like travel to clients within Europe from Eindhoven. And also from Europe to Eindhoven to visit one of the many companies that we have here. Yeah, and it's not a secret that we have a booming economy here, so that also attracts people from Europe to see if they can do business here. And yeah, how can you do that better to fly directly to Eindhoven, to an airport, from where you can take the bus or the taxi to meet your client?
And can you steer that? I mean, I can imagine that from the perception of the Brainport region, from the perception of the municipality, they love to have that local role and maybe leave the fun stuff to Schiphol or somewhere else. Can you influence that, or is that all in hands of the airlines who just pick the passengers that pay best? Or
we try to influence. Yeah, we try to influence that because we have a wish list that's also being on a frequently basis being checked within the Brainport region with a lot of companies to see which destinations we not currently having right now are of interest for them. And it's for us to build up that business case and talk with the airlines to see if they have room within the limited availability of slots, so the rights to land at an airport, to exchange one destination for another.
And is that then more than paying lip service to the desirability of it? Because in the end, they will just look at their spreadsheets and financial results in making those decisions.
Yeah, but we also financially stimulate new destinations. So we talk with the airlines to see which destination is of interest for them. We have the numbers to prove. There are also data systems where you can see where people are living, booking tickets to which destinations. And if you see, for instance, that there's a large group within we call it the catchment area. So it's not about catching fish, but about catching people in order to that have the preference for a regional airport to see where they want to go. You see that by the booking numbers. To see if there's a destination which is not yet served via Eindhoven Airport, we can build a business case towards the airline. And we have also a financial way of a stimulus to help that going for the first years.
Can I get a discount if I were a large company that runs its own air service?
Oh, we have a few here in the region that might be tended to get in touch with, indeed. No, but true. But for instance, this year we have Oslo back on the list, and that is something that was on the Brainport list to fly to. And Transavia is now from I believe March onwards going to fly to Oslo because of that reason.
Yeah, I also observed that in the summer you have new destinations from the East countries on the map or flying in and off. And I was wondering if that it is linked to the seasonal workers that come over in the summer for, the region works that we require that help, because we do know we have not only the engineers, as you say, and the decision makers. This area depends a lot also of seasonal workers. And sometimes I see flights coming up in the summer and then you look for, is that destination still there in the winter? It just disappeared from the list. And you see it again next summer. I said, okay. You see probably that demand, as you are saying.
Yeah, the seasonal influence is a little bit also, how do you say that? Well, let's put it, our flight destinations and the way to fly and where is based on the market. So that means if, for instance, the agricultural season starts in just before summer, then you might see that happening. So the airlines know when to fly where with which type of passengers. And currently we are in the low season, so that means that the motivation to fly is a little bit less than in the summer periods, because then you start indeed the more the Southern European flights in the flight schedule of Eindhoven Airport. That's based on the market. So whether it is for leisure or business-wise, the people that come here for a few months doing labor in agriculture, that's been all been taken into account to make to balance the destinations and the slots that they have.
Did you want to address it?
You are in the low season. We are on a rainy day today here.
Yeah,
we have a
unfortunately.
stiff wind coming from the southwest.
Yeah.
Airplanes are taking off against the wind.
Yep.
Airports thrive well in economic winds that blow maybe not in the right direction. How is it today, let's say, economically, with the passengers going for the vacations in the summertime, whereas Brainport is booming? How are you handling that? Is that a kind of management strategy that you have there?
Well, what we do is that we try to accommodate the airlines, because those are the clients that we actually have, because nobody buys tickets via an airport. So basically, the almost 7 million passengers that we have each year fly with the airlines. What I said is that we constantly talk with the airlines to have the most ideal spread of destinations and availability of flights throughout the year. For instance, Austria is something that you see currently happening because of the winter sports. Everyone on skiing and the like. So that's what you see currently more being flown to. It is of course something that is key. Our key product is aviation. It's about making sure that people that we want to serve within the wider region go where they need to go.
We spoke a little bit about serving people and about aviation, and touched a little bit on the operations of the business of an airport, which is quite complex. I was wondering, did you see a change or a shift in the way the airport is managed post-pandemic world?
Not as strictly as that, but more on the soft side. You see a change between the airport prior to 2019 and the beginning of 2020 and how we work right now.
So what do you mean on the soft side? I'm very curious to hear more.
The human side of how to, because in airport management with all the operational procedures, which are all based on safety and security, they haven't changed. Because that's something that the pandemic did.
Probably they increased.
Now, but what happened, of course, with COVID is that we were in a strange situation that the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, we saw people coming out of the airplanes from Italy, the north of Italy, with their mouth masks on. And we said, well, what the hell's going on? And are they all sound, and we couldn't expect that within 2 or 3 months' time, the full operation that we have became to a full stop, almost in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And then you need to manage your organization, and then you need to manage your people. And at Eindhoven, we have around 1,700 people working with all the external parties like security, the retail partners, the ground handling organization that's hired by us to do the work on the apron and inside of the building. How to keep the organization together.
Without coming to work every day and without having flights.
Yeah. Well, we made a decision back then is not to come to a 100% full stop. So we remained an operating airfield. But there were days that we only have one plane coming in. So we had to make sure that the complete operation, and also the people in the tower from the military, they came to work for one plane from Hungary coming in with 6 or 7 people in there.
Yeah.
And also with 5, 6 stepping on board, going to Hungary. And then we closed down again for the next day. And that was like the Twilight Zone.
But you kept it running, which probably was important.
Yeah.
Just having that sense of it is not stopped, because a lot of organizations, a lot of humans working in other places lost perspective. So keeping it running gives a motivation to, look farther to the future. Maybe it's changing, maybe it's getting better.
Yeah, but also from a very practical reason is that it's easier once, because we all knew that things were somehow at one point in time would become normal
Come
again.
around the corner, yeah.
Is that it's easier to shift gears up again instead of restart your complete organization from zero onwards. So that's what we chose for. Some airports, like Rotterdam, for instance, they completely shut down, and they had to restart again, dust everything off. Now we were still a little bit ongoing, and that helped.
So if you couldn't run, at least you walked a little bit, or you crawled a little bit.
Yeah.
You took that decision.
Yeah, at least we were moving.
Yeah, at least you're moving. You're touching on the human side and on the moving, and you very nice described how actually the airport is where you feel probably the strongest emotions. Saying goodbye, saying welcome, and the same probably also for the people working here.
Yeah.
You also mentioned just earlier that the people in the tower control from the military side. When you explained the whole complexity of Eindhoven Airport, one thing that you made me aware of is that as we are looking to the runway here, what every airport has is a tower control, but we do not see that.
No. We are the only airport in the Netherlands that doesn't have its own tower and its own flight control.
Yes, because that it is on the military side, right?
True, yeah.
Yeah. And that makes the operation also interesting and running the airport, and also complex in a way, I assume.
Yeah.
So how is the collaboration? What are the challenges, and what are, the plus sides? What goes smoothly in collaborating with a military airbase?
Well, the good thing is that the collaboration is extremely well. Basically, we run as one organization, and that's the way how it's supposed to be. True, this is a military airfield that we're operating on, but most of the flights, our civil flights, are done by us. So basically, the flight control in the tower, for 80% of the time, they control our flights. So they're also considered as colleagues. And they have a different uniform on than the airport operations staff at our airport. But there's not only, and maybe not every minute, but a constant contact with those guys to see what's going on. So we operate as one. Same goes for the fire brigade. Every airport has it, but it's theirs. So they also work for us. Bird control is also something that they do for us, because safety is important in there and you don't want any accidents. So the military bird control team also take care that the civil planes land safely. And so we need to know from each other what's going on. They need to know what we are doing, why we are doing things, how we are doing things, so they can adapt to that, and vice versa. So that's why everybody that flies here and works here, and also the pilots with the plane, and you just described the situation about the military airplane, and I believe it was the TUI airplane they wanted to start. It's normal here, so we don't know any different than what's happening every day.
So if an organization really wants to enhance their collaboration between two different complete, let's say, functions or sub-organizations, they have something to learn from Eindhoven Airport. What I'm here is that the purpose of everyone here is safety, people safety.
Yeah.
We want people to take off safely, land safe, and be safe around.
Yep.
And whatever we do, however we make decisions, safety is the most important thing. So we have a common purpose, and two organizations are working together. It seems easy. I don't think it is as easy when you hear all kind of, misalignments and misagreements in other organization. But it's really interesting to hear where this really functions well, because I can think that it is a lot to learn from it.
Yeah, if you talk about safety, the safety procedures at an airport, if you write them down, it's as big as a telephone book. So, and actually there are people who know everything by heart. So that's, the easy part about it is that, and that's maybe the key thing for organizations to work together is that they share the same goal, same objective. And that's, I think, the common ground you need to have in order to have a successful collaboration. And that's what we see here at the airport, that we work to provide a good product with a good service against maximum safety. And that's what we're all doing.
A very thick book that describes all the safety procedures. When doctors get whole lists of things they have to do, they complain that they don't see patients anymore. You have to turn around an airplane in 25 minutes and still have to go through that telephone book of safety regulations.
Yeah, that's true. So, but that's the good thing, that the safety regulations don't apply to everybody. So it's divided within the certain processes to make sure that a plane can land and people can get aboard. So everybody has a little piece of the pie to make sure that everything works like it should be. So we all know what we need to do. So and if you walk around here and you see at the apron people walking around, they all know their task and they know their little bit of what they need to do in order to make the complete mechanism work.
And then I see Ralu looking processes.
Exactly. So we are touching exactly on what makes really organization successful, right? We talk about having the biggest purpose, understanding what that is, and what we are talking about, have defined processes. Make it. These processes need to be there. We need to define. And what I hear from you is just now saying, know what you do, what it is your responsibility, have clear responsibility and roles, and understand how what you do really helps the bigger purpose. Yeah. I mean, you made my day. I'm done for today. I can go home. But the conversation but the conversation just starts to be even more interesting, because it is true. And people, when you see them on the apron here, and they know why they have to take the cars within a certain distance of the airplane, why they have to move with a certain speed to offload or upload the luggage. And it is all interesting. It is almost, we would say, a military clock operation. Here it is closer to real than...
That's true. And when you see it happening, it all seems to run like clockwork, and as smooth as clockwork, of course. But nowadays it's all done by good instructions and to keep people involved and make sure what their part in the bigger story is indeed.
I know a lot of people in research labs who think, if all these processes are there, the work must be boring. But you are excited, you think it's fun, it is different every day. So
yeah,
apparently that's possible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, of course. And I think we have the luxury of being in a place. And I catch myself during the day also more than a few times to look outside to see how things are going, why things are happening as they happen, to constantly focus on what we're doing and understand what we're doing. And sometimes it looks very normal and like every day, but every day you see differences. So it sounds like a cliche, and everybody says it. No day is the same, but actually this year, no day is the same here.
In any organization, there are mistakes happening. And because we are talking about the importance of the bigger purpose, the importance of understanding roles and connecting, when mistakes are happening, because I assume there will be, and we hope they are not too big or too high impact, what does an airport operation, how do we embrace mistakes? How do we look to them? Some people will say mistakes are their opportunities for improvement. Mm-hmm. In other cultures, other organizations will say, mistakes never happen in our organization. We are really doing it by the book.
Well, we're all human. No, of course. the good story would be that everything happens like it's planned to happen. But of course, sometimes things don't work out as planned. So what you need to do is to evaluate. And we don't evaluate from an Eindhoven Airport NV perspective alone, and also not only our airport operation team, but as I said, we have a lot of external parties who do part of the job, like security or ground handling or refueling. Those teams meet every day, twice a day, to go through the daily operations to see what to expect, and also talk about what they saw before to see how they can improve. And that's the military police are involved in there as well. And so all the key players in the operational processes come together twice a day to brief each other, to inform each other, to evaluate each other, and to plan together.
Do they also have a freedom to, let's say, improve the telephone book? Because that is international regulations, I guess. Many of these organizations who work on constantly improving them and having these stand-ups regularly, they do that because they want to improve their processes.
Yeah,
but
that would be
a
a question to ask to our security manager in order to have that complete picture. But we work in an international arena. Yeah, so we have people flying in from Greece, pilots from Greece, from Turkey, from the south of Europe, the UK, and the east of Europe. So they all need to work by one book. So you can imagine that we can't do things differently than another airport would do, because then it would be a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are you discussing then? Because you cannot rewrite a book, but you want to improve your processes.
Yeah, it's in detail. The devil is in the details. So it's all about these little things. How can we improve on every aspect?
And it is, as you say, the devil is in the detail, is in the human aspect. Very often what I see is not about changing the big international book, but is changing the environment on the ground to ensure that people can do it the best they can do it. Because when errors are happening, it comes down to human factor or the wrong process. If the processes are the international one and they are supposed to be the right processes, it comes down to the environment and how our employees and how our staff functions. So what can we change, I suppose, from how we create those environments? Allow me to ask one more question about the airport, and then I would really like to move to Gijs, the person behind the role of Director of Communication at the airport. But one thing that I was wondering, with the growing aspect of the Brainport, and we hear ISML hiring more and more people, but not only ISML, the high-tech campus is growing, more companies, more startups. The area is growing. We had a debate on housing. As the area is growing, people are arriving here, as you are saying. Do we need a bigger airport? Is there any foreseen future for the airport?
Depends who you're asking that question. Basically, and this story goes back 5 to 6 years ago, the airport was in a situation to reevaluate. We talk about processes and agreements with stakeholders. We have many stakeholders, and one of them is, of course, the group of people who live around the airport. Eindhoven Airport has seen a big growth since the beginning of the millennium, end of the 1990s. And currently we're at, last year, at 6.8 million people. And that's pretty much. So we have more than 40,000 flights. So if you, I'm better in words than in numbers, but round it out, but 100 flights a day. 10, 15 years ago, it was not even 1/3 of that flight. So people noticed that there were more planes in the sky. And also the tendency more on a social level towards aviation has also grown a little bit more negative in the last few years, because we are the poster child of sustainability and climate change and the like. So all eyes are on aviation to make that change. So we're in the position to define our role. 5 to 6 years ago, that was actually the case when we discussed the development and the future development for Eindhoven Airport. And basically what we agreed upon is a standstill. So the 40,000 flights I just mentioned are still the same numbers as we did in 2019. So we made an agreement with the region of Eindhoven and inhabitants, city councils and the like in the province to grow above 40,000 flights. If you see the development of the Brainport area, which is for some countries they're jealous of it, you would say, well, from an entrepreneurial point of view, you need to grow in the same pace as the economical environment is doing. We have said, well, let's try to see if we can not create a bigger airport, but a better airport to make sure that the destinations are more in balance with the need of the region. The story we just had a few minutes ago is that we try to see from, okay, what's the regional need and how can we translate that into a good list and a menu card of destinations that you can fly to, and also persuade the airlines to fly to destinations Brainport wants us to fly to. And that's what we need to work on.
So it's not about growing in size, it's not about growing in space and
growing in quality.
Growing in quality.
Yeah.
Making the business smarter and looking to diversification or selection of destinations on what the Brainport area needs.
Yeah.
And it is interesting, this makes me think to what our mayor in Eindhoven said is we also have to be careful on how fast we grow and what this fast growth means to our economical area, because it comes also with some consequences and with the price.
Yeah.
You touch on sustainability, and I know sustainability is also one of your topics. How does sustainability and flying and so many flights, maybe less than in other airports, linked together? Because some people are of the opinion that flying is not so sustainable, is not so good for the planet.
Yeah, air travel adds value. Let's put it, because otherwise it wouldn't exist. So we saw by the numbers of people who chose to fly again after COVID. The numbers have increased, and we are not only back on track, but last year we had more people flying than before. So there's a need. There's a desire for people to go abroad for leisure purposes or to visit family, but also economically. So that's a fact. But if you want to do something like that, you need to do that in the best way possible, so that the environmental impact is as low as possible. So what we did as an organization at the end of last year, we looked at our product, the way how we manage a product currently, and how we would look at how we would like to see that happening in, for instance, 2030. So we said, well, okay, first look at the types of products that we have. So what we did was we took a decision, and it wasn't an easy one because it's part of our portfolio for a few years, is that the business and private jet service that we offer, which sometimes have only maybe 2 or 3 people in a plane, is something that maybe it's difficult to support that. So let's try to wind it down. So we said, well, okay, from 2026 onwards, for January, let's stop providing that. We call it general aviation side of Eindhoven Airport. So that's already a pretty bold step for an airport to cut down a service which has a need. The other thing is that we look at innovation. In order to make flying more sustainable, you can choose to change fuel. Currently, you have kerosene that is being used by airplanes. We are working on sustainable aviation fuel, and that starts with biofuel, and in the end, that needs to be transitioned into synthetic fuel. It's not available in large portions yet, but we said, well, okay, we need to make sure that by 2030 we have a lot of more planes flying on sustainable aviation